Hey everyone, Mr. Sujano here, your source for gaming, tech, emulation, and open source news. Let's get started. Alright, to kick things off, I'm a little bit sad because this might be one of my last camping videos for the year. The parks are starting to close down, they're shutting down facilities and also shutting down campsites. And I'm hoping here I might be able to get one more video out, but I really doubt it. So this may be it for camping for the year. And I do have a lot to talk about, so come along with me on my morning walk and let's talk about some news here. The weather is cold, it's brisk, but it's also a beautiful day. So first up on the news docket, we're talking about game preservation and the Video Game History Foundation. And the Video Game History Foundation relates some news that I don't think a lot of people are going to enjoy. So it turns out here that the US Copyright Office is not a fan of game preservation in terms of online libraries and people checking out games. If you are interested in reading the entire announcement, like everything I talk about, link will be in the description below right at the bottom. And this is right from the Video Game History Foundation's webpage. So they say here, the US Copyright Office announced today that they would not grant a new exception in the DMCA in support of video game preservation. For the past 3 years, the Video Game History Foundation has been supporting the Software Preservation Network on a petition to allow libraries and archives to remotely share digital access to out-of-print video games in their collection. Under the current anti-circumvention rules in Section 1201 of the DMCA, libraries and archives are unable to break copy protection on games in order to make them remotely accessible to researchers. They go on to say, while we are disappointed by the Copyright Office's decision, we have no regrets going through this process. Over the last 3 years, working on the petition has helped us generate important research, notably our survey of the video game reissue market in the United States report, which proved that about 87% of video games released in the United States before 2010 remain out of print. I'm going to have to shift the camera over just to the other side here so the sun's not directly in my eye. Unfortunately, lobbying efforts by rights holder groups continue to hold back progress. During our hearing with the Copyright Office, the Entertainment Software Association, ESA, declared that they would never support remote game access for research purposes under any conditions. They do say, though, that they're not done fighting. They're going to continue their advocacy for greater access and legal allowances for video game preservation and working with members of the game industry to increase internal awareness around these issues. Now, I really haven't seen positive reactions to this statement online. I have seen the occasional troll here and there, but the general consensus to me seems very negative. In fact, Accursed Farms here says, the Video Game History Foundation was denied an exemption to the DMCA to allow more access to out-of-print games. They asked for crumbs and were denied the crumbs. This is why I've been focusing entirely outside the US for legal action on preservation. Now, I'm not going to go on a tangent here. I'll just give you my 2 cents on the matter. I personally think that this just shows a bigger problem with the US landscape in terms of, well, companies just seem to be favored over the individual. And on top of that, it also seems that lobbyists get away with way too much. They can throw any amount of money at any problem and get the solution they're looking for. I may be off base with that, but that's just what I'm seeing. But let me know your thoughts about this one in the comments below. Do you think this is the end of the video game preservation battle, or at least near the end of the battle? Or do you think there's still a long ways to go and still a lot of hope? I'm hoping for actions outside of the US and maybe see what happens overseas. But moving on from that, and next up, we're talking about not win now, but win later. Now, for those who may not be aware, I guess if you haven't seen my YouTube videos or not, WinLater is a Windows emulator on Android. And it appears here that Red Magic knows about WinLater and, well, that's a big thing. So this one was posted over on Reddit and someone saw this on the Red Magic Gaming Instagram account. Now, Red Magic is a cell phone manufacturer. I just think this is a cool news piece. So someone comments, great cloud gaming. And Red Magic Gaming says, WinLater exists. Now, I don't want to say this piece of news is a nothing burger. I mean, it kind of is. There's not a whole lot there, but at the same time, I think it's pretty cool that a cell phone manufacturer acknowledges WinLater. And speaking about acknowledging stuff, next up, we're talking about the Nintendo Switch 2. And it turns out that Yooka Replay may be the first officially announced game for the Switch 2. At least that's kind of what the trailer says. So Yooka Replay just had their console announcement trailer, and at the end of the trailer, they showcase that it's coming to Xbox Series X and S, PS5, PC, and Nintendo. And they don't say Nintendo Switch, they just flat out say Nintendo, which is very weird. So taking a look at the comments on that video, and it seems this whole console announcement trailer for Yuka Replay E has been overshadowed by the fact that they just used the Nintendo logo at the end of it. A lot of people noticed that, and well, a lot of people are commenting about it. I mean, some people have even noticed that the eyes are interestingly placed right above the Nintendo logo as well. So I guess we're going to hear more about the Switch 2 maybe sooner rather than later. Who knows? There's an investors meeting coming up for Nintendo. Maybe we'll hear then, maybe we won't. But let me know your thoughts about this one in the comments below. Do you think Yuka Replay E is the first official Switch 2 confirmed game? And speaking about Yuka Replay E and Nintendo, next up we're talking about Banjo-Tooie. And people have noticed that Banjo-Tooie on the Nintendo Switch Online is running a little bit weird. Just in one specific area though. Apparently the game is emulated just fine except for the demo screen. So it's being reported that if people boot up Banjo-Tooie and just leave it running, the game will start speeding up. The audio is fine, it's just the gameplay seems way too fast. The enemies move around too fast and Banjo-Kazooie moves around too fast. Now this doesn't affect gameplay, just the beginning screen. So to me it goes to show that even after all these years, the Nintendo 64 is still one tough system to emulate. Next up we're talking about Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, and Grand Theft Auto San Andreas is celebrating its 20th anniversary. Time absolutely flies here. Anyways, here in celebration of its 20th anniversary, someone who worked on the game shared some very interesting information. But before we get to that, I'm going to show you some nice big fluffs. So how about this fluff sighting just to cap off the camping season? They are friend sized, they are friend shaped, they do look very cuddly, but I'm going to keep my distance. They are apex predators and well, they are very dangerous. But at the same time, they are very nice to look at. Let me know your thoughts about these guys in the comments below. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that one. I'm going to continue on walking here. So Obi, I think that's how you say their name. They worked on Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, and on Twitter here, they say 20 years ago we released Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. The original plan was for the 3 cities to be on separate maps. The player would travel between the cities using trains and planes. GTA 1 and 2 also had cities on separate maps. Memory was very tight on the PS2 with separate maps. The other cities' skyline models wouldn't have to be in memory. It would also make it easier to have different police, ambulance, and fire trucks for each city, different pickups, weather types, etc. It would also be easier to contain the player until it was time for the next city. It would also make it easier to organize the models on the DVD city by city, which would help with the streaming. Just before the artists started working on the 3 maps, we had a final meeting at Rockstar North in which we changed our minds and decided to go for a big map after all. Surprisingly, even though they went with one big map, they were able to do city-specific police cars and pickups. And I think that's a pretty big feat in itself and something that would have really changed the game if they decided to do it city by city and make things separate. Let me know your thoughts about that one. Next up, we're talking about Big P-Mew and Rich Whitehouse. And if you're a fan of Big P-Mew, if you're a fan of the Atari Jaguar, and if you've got an iPhone, you're going to like this news. It appears that Rich does have the emulator up and running well on an iPhone. So in that video, Rich says, checkered flag running at native resolution with gyroscope steering on my iPhone. And he's still accepting beta testers. So if you know a thing or two about emulation and you wanted to be a beta tester and you've got an iPhone, well, you may want to check out his post. Next up, we're talking about Magic the Gathering. And if you're a fan of Magic the Gathering and a fan of Final Fantasy, you may be a fan of this collaboration. So there's a brand new collaboration between Magic the Gathering and Final Fantasy that's going to be introducing some brand new cards next year. The trailer says it's happening on June 13th, 2025. So I'm thinking that a lot of people are going to be picking up these cards just for the Final Fantasy ones. To be honest, I'm very curious to see how these things go, what they're priced at, and whether or not they turn out to be super collectible. At least hopefully they're super cool and functional in game, but who knows. But anyways, that is all I've got for you in this one. Straight to the point, all stuff and some very nice fluffs. We've talked about a bunch today. Let me know your thoughts about absolutely any of it in the comments below. If you like this video, leave a like. If you didn't like this video, leave a like. Hit that subscribe button, check out my other videos. Don't tempt fate, save your state.